So, hello everybody. Welcome to the Connected Conversations. I'm Martina Mazdrova. I am your host, and the Connected Conversations are here for you as a source of connection of a piece of information, a person you get to have in your life to move the needle, to open a space within yourself so that you move forward in your life to where you want to go. And today I am so excited to welcome Wes Makinster, who is who is a backpacking guide and connection coach, and he brings his clients into nature as a medium for getting intimately connected with themselves. So, Wes, thank you so much for joining me in this conversation, and
Yeah,
tell
thanks
us
for having me.
about yourself. How did you become backpacking guide, connection coach? What's your story?
Sure, yeah. So, well, my journey to backpacking is kind of a long one. I grew up camping with my parents. They would take us to campgrounds in summer, and we would do car camping. And I didn't do a lot of that in like beginning of college once I left my parents' house. And I started to a little bit more when I started bartending. So I started bartending when I turned 21, and the getting back into camping, like I remembered as a kid, was how I got out and like recovered from the overstimulation of being at a bar 5 nights a week or more. Because for me at that time, if I wasn't working, I was probably at the bar drinking. And in fact, I spent more time at the bar than I did at school, for sure. But basically, what happened? So the bar that I worked at would close for like 3 weeks, I think, at the end of the summer. And summer session wasn't in, and so there weren't students, and so I would just get to leave. I didn't have work, didn't have school, and it's not like I didn't have to find a job. I had a job waiting for me in a month, and I started taking that time and just driving around all summer camping places and spending the whole time outside basically, and remembering how important it was for me to spend time outside like that. And I started getting into backpacking because I wanted to get farther out. I wanted to get a little bit, away from the RVs and like just the noise, and like so much of it for me is about getting out in solitude, and there's only so much you can do in the front country where everything's accessible by road. So I just started buying stuff and like looking it up on the internet, like how do people make this happen? What do they use? Like, and actually the first time that I went backpacking, me and my dog, I took my dog, and I think it was like a 6-mile trip. My pack must have been 55 pounds. I had a hatchet, I had a collapsible saw, I had a solar panel, like I had all the stuff. And it was hard, it was hard. And I got up there and spent a couple days hanging out the lake, and actually, like, it's so funny, I forgot about this. I used to smoke a lot of weed back then, and I actually got lost one day. We went on a day hike, and I got high at the lake, and on the way back down, I must have just like not been paying attention, and I was just walking, and all of a sudden I realized there was no trail. and I had to like sit down and like, okay, when was the last time you saw the trail? And basically what ended up happening is my dog figured it out. I kept wandering around not knowing what the hell was going on, and at one point she went a different direction than me, and when I looked over at her, she was just standing there staring, and so I walked over there.
What are you doing? Well, she paid attention.
So man, yeah, that was an interesting experience, and I was like, well, you're never going to get high again somewhere where you don't know where you're going in the woods.
It's a good takeaway. That's some good learning.
But yeah, that trip just kind of opened up so many doors, because then I started looking at, okay, well, what things did I bring that I didn't use, right? think what really got me the most motivated at that point was once I shared with my parents what I was getting into, and my mom heard about the Pacific Crest Trail, and she put me onto that. She's like, well, this is what you're doing. You probably love this. And it instantly became like a life goal, right? And so I just started doing backpacking instead of car camping in the summers. And I'd always bring my dog. Sometimes I would go with friends. Most of the time I would go alone. And then when I moved to California, I started going out here, and I think, a year after I moved here, I went out and did the northern, like half of the Pacific Crest Trail, or northern third of it, something like that. I started at the Oregon-California border and went north, and I mean, that was such a life-changing experience for me. And what's that?
Tell me more about this. When you say life-changing, what are some of the takeaways, or what happened? What has shifted for you?
I mean, I think the second time was probably more so, but I was a bartender, so I worked in restaurants, and one of the reasons why I liked restaurants was because it was so flexible, and you could just like, okay, I'm done at this place, like I gotta go do my thing, I'll come back and I'll find a job somewhere. And when I was out on the trail, it was like all of the things that I worried about at home became so like, what's the word that I'm looking for? I mean, you just don't have to, you don't worry about so much, because literally all you're focusing on every day is walking and eating, like putting one foot in front of the other and eating, and the rest of the time you just are being in the woods, right? Like you're just there. And there's no, like, nothing that you need to do, nothing that you have to do, nothing that you should do. And you can choose to be on your own. You can choose to be around other hikers. I actually had my dog came with me for some of that too. Yeah. My parents live up in Washington State, and so when I got there, they came and picked me up to the closest part of the trail, and then brought Bailey back to the trail with me, and picked her up at the next section. She hiked 84 miles with me on the trail. Yeah. And I made some great friends. And like when you connect with people out there, it's completely different, right? Like small talk is so different when you don't have, like, you're not meeting at a bar after work, right? Like, and all those things, what's going on in your world is your job, and you know, like all the stuff at home, etc. Like small talk in the woods, in the mountains on the trail is like, do you guys remember that creek? You know, like, or that when, oh my God, we just went 30 miles without water, and this is the best water that I've ever had in my life.
Yeah.
Or did you guys have the bottomless pancakes at that last town? You know, because all you can think about is food.
So how long did you walk? How long was it? Like, what was the distance?
That time was something like 850 miles, I think. I was on the trail for 53 days, if I remember correctly, that time. And most people, when they through hike the trail, it's like a 4 to 6 month thing. So yeah, I actually came back in 2017, and I left intending to through hike southbound, and I started in Washington with a friend that I met the first time around. And then when I got back to where my parents live, this was when the eclipse was happening. And so I let myself get super distracted, and I went off and like found a place in totality and went and watched the eclipse and came back, and there was just forest fires everywhere. So I just went completely around the forest fire in Oregon and went straight to California. And I think that whole chunk, I was gone for 4.5 months. With the majority of it, I was on the trail. And that was when I started to, I was really trying to quit smoking cigarettes. I was wanting, and as much as I was trying to quit, I was just trying to take a break from all this stuff, like alcohol and smoking weed. Like I just wanted to purge. I didn't know that it was going to become a thing that lasted. Because actually on the trail, it didn't last very long. I mean, the first time I got to town and ran into a bunch of other hikers, somebody offered me a cigarette. And I was like, oh, yeah. And we were drinking beer in town and smoking spliffs on the trail. But that time, when I got home, there's something that happens to you when you spend that much time outside, and away from society and the city, and just everything slows down, and you just don't need the same things that you used to. And for me at that point, I had been basically I was a workaholic up until in between the two trail trips. And it kind of was always that way with restaurants, because you can work as much as you want, whenever you want, really. It carried over with me this time. And I felt just slowing down in life, in general, and not needing as much. And especially when you aren't drinking so much, or smoking weed or any of that stuff, you start saving some money and you don't actually need as much money, right? So I was working less and I drive an old Volkswagen van, and so going everywhere is slow. It was everything slowed down. So one of the biggest things that I got from backpacking, I think, is patience. Sure.
But in terms of space, can you elaborate more? Is this space in life, space within yourself? What has shifted?
So space within my, how have I changed?
Yeah. I don't know. You tell me. What do you need to create a space? So just in terms of what did it look like? So it is more tangible for some listeners.
I mean, I think it's more before, for me, I was so go all over the place, always having to do something, burying myself in work, and spending that much time connected with Mother Nature and yourself, and getting grounded, and literally, right? There's no chairs, so you're sitting on the ground all the time, which I love. And walking around barefoot at camp, I love that stuff. And so I mean, I think you're just creating space for yourself. The space is for you to just be who you authentically are, and to just feel all the things that you're feeling in that moment.
Yeah.
And it's nature and the wilderness is a container that there's no judgment, there's no expectations. It's like God that way. It's just there to let you be yourself.
I love that. And that is, I feel, I mean, there is so much goodness in this because I resonate with this so much. I mean, I hike, well, I didn't hike for 4 months. I do have a vision to walk along the northern Spain, which is about 1,000 kilometers, but I walked twice, and it was 2 weeks and then 3 weeks. I went by myself. It was in Spain, the Camino de Santiago, and I'd never hiked before, like ever. I didn't. So I so resonate with you in the first trip when I was like overpacked, like totally overpacked. But what if I will be cold, and what if I will be wet, and I need this t-shirt and I need this, and with the day 3 is like, well, I don't need this t-shirt. I don't need that. I don't need that. And I started to throw stuff away. But what's really resonating with me is what you've said, that you don't worry about anything else than where am I gonna walk, where am I gonna eat, where for me, where am I gonna stay, because I wasn't backpacking. I was kind of sleeping with the pilgrimage albergues and hostels.
But this is the same definitely with backpacking. Where am I going to sleep? Like sometimes you do have to plan that. Like we once slept in the middle of the lava fields in Oregon State, and it was like 20 something miles of nowhere to sleep. And we were like, holy shit, we fucked up. And then randomly there's one little sand pit that's just big enough for 2 tents. It was the only flat, soft place for miles. So,
yeah, no, I hear you. And with creating the space, it was very similar for me, getting out of the city, getting out of the very go mode, and just working until super late, wanting to do all this too much to feel good about myself at work, and feeling I need to prove myself. And I was coming home 11 o'clock, and I was teaching children gymnastics. So it was, it was all that. So for me, what has opened up was this: how we do one thing, we do everything. And that was just before I started. I feel like really this was my entry into the personal growth and the personal development. As I connected, I realized how much actually I love nature, how much I've missed nature, because I've always been in cities. I've always traveled the city breaks and all of this to do all more stuff. But just as I walked, right? And then I could suddenly see the way how I approached the day with this overthinking and over planning, and the way, in a way, underestimating myself at that time. It's like, well, I can only walk like 15 kilometers like in one day, right? I've never walked before. I had no idea. I had no evidence I can do this.
Yeah.
And then it's just, and suddenly you meet these amazing people, no small talk to say, and suddenly you walk 25, and I was like, oh wow, I can do this. And it was such a thing, such a reflection to, the relationship with myself, right? And how, oh my God, there was so much goodness. How, like, I really struggled on the normal roads. Even there was beautiful nature, and the hills and the views were beautiful, but there was just this pavement road. And that was such a killer. And I'm like, what is it about this? And then the second we went into the forest, and this path where you have to think, like, where am I gonna step? Here is a stone. I get to be careful. Suddenly I felt just alive, and I was like, that's it. This is the, like, stereotype of life, right? Just having it, that you don't have to even think. You just go and go and go. That was just like a realization for me, like it's such a soul killer for me, and I can't live this way. And there was so much of just being in nature. So thank you for bringing me back on my hike.
No, I love that. Like I have this, like, it's the same with hiking for me as it is with trail running, because I do a lot of trail running too, where like you can get so connected with what's going on around you and be so fully immersed that your body is just going, and it doesn't need you to tell it where to go. It knows.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And it was there was this moment when it's just it was the beginning of this personal growth, and everyone's like, you can choose how you feel, right? You don't want to be happy, like choose something different. And I used to hate that. It was like, how can I choose? I feel this, how can I choose something different? And there was this morning, it was pouring rain, it was ugly and horrible, and we walked maybe for 10 minutes. I was soaking wet and I was so angry. I was in all of those feels, just fuming at the weather, fuming at the life. And like maybe about an hour, I was still fuming and nothing was changing, right? It was still raining. And then eventually it clicked. And I'm like, well, how is this going to change anything? It's still raining. I can maybe enjoy it, or maybe I can do something with it. And suddenly I just felt alive. Suddenly I saw people. Suddenly I could have conversations. And I actually, that was one of the best days on the day, just literally singing in the rain kind of thing. And it was just, again, like such a parallel to life, how but I can really speak for myself, right? How I used to get so focus on the thing that something doesn't work, right? Something doesn't work, or it's not the way how I want it to be, and I would be so upset about it, or angry, or I would put so much energy to it, but nothing has changed. And it's like, well, what is the other way I can look at it, right? What is the other way I can approach it? And suddenly it dissolves, and it just goes. It's just so beautiful.
The problem isn't the problem, right? It's how you're looking at it.
Yes, totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah, I wish I would have had that mindset the first time I went out on the trail, because it would have helped deal with the weather a lot.
Yeah.
But I totally relate to what you're saying, and like making the best out of it and like choosing to have a good time instead.
Yeah. Yeah, because it was just literally, I was just so angry. I was so exhausted. It was like an hour on the train. I was just done. And I just remember this moment. I'm like, well, the way that I am upset and angry, well, it doesn't stop the rain. The rain doesn't care, right?
Yeah.
What I can do, and it just happened. And then suddenly like, oh, this is probably what they talk about. All these people that you can choose how you feel and all of that. Yeah, there is so much beauty in this. So when we talk about our theme is really creating intimacy and connection through wilderness. Let's talk a bit more about intimacy. What does that mean to you, actually, being intimate?
Well, I mean, let's see. The way that I look at it is intimacy is into me, you see, right? And so being intimate with someone is letting them see who you are, sharing who you are on the inside. And that is the same when you are looking at intimacy with yourself, like being real with yourself, really letting yourself experience what you're feeling, what you felt in the past, and who it is that you are, think you are, want to be, all of those things.
Yeah. And I know that we kind of often creating this go mode because we don't want to go there, right? We've successfully suppressed and hide and hid all of this. So for those listeners who are like, I don't want to go to the past, I don't want to feel this, like, why should I become intimate? Kind of why where would you go with them?
Well,
why is it important?
Because that's where your freedom lies. The freedom comes from being able to fully express yourself, and so it's like that authenticity piece, right? When you are being fully authentic, that's when you allow yourself to be intimate, right? Because you're sharing who you really are, and that authenticity is what frees you from judgment or wanting to look good, and things like that. Because when you are your authentic self, none of that stuff matters. And so much of that comes from recognizing who you are now, who you were then, the things that are going on in your life, how you feel, things that happened in your past. So it really, to me, it comes down to, to being free. Because when you address everything, or when you start to address everything, then you're not letting it take your energy all the time.
Yeah.
And that energy is what frees you.
Yeah, that's great. And thank you for this conversation, because I think this is so important to talk about, and especially that it's coming from a man, because I know society and the conditioning in the programming, generally speaking, we really haven't been taught really how to deal with emotions, the big emotions, and what to do with them, and that it's okay to feel them, and it is safe to feel them, and we will be loved and accepted and seen with all those feelings, right? Because we learn to be someone else in order to get the attention, to get the recognition, to get the validation, because we have not created within ourselves. But I think, well, from my experience, I think for men, the bar is even higher than for women, because it's the label, at least in my environment where I grew up, was always hearing like, be strong and be tough and toughen up, man, you get to be. And I feel that men were not allowed to really connect with their emotion, and it is okay, otherwise they would be perceived weak. In my world here in the Czech Republic, it's been like, so what has been your experience with on your side of the world?
I mean, I would say it's very similar. Like we're told as young boys, as young men, to be strong, to be tough, right? And what that originally translates to is like, we're not supposed to cry. Like, you don't show emotion. You're stone, stone cold, right? And so, like, my experience as a young man was like, if you do show emotion, if you let that kind of stuff come to the surface, if you cry, like, like, that's where you get made fun of, or like you said, you're just told to, like, man up, deal with it. So yeah, it is difficult to want, to start to share that stuff. And like, at least for me, when we talk about like working all the time to avoid this kind of stuff, like, that's what I did in all my relationships. I buried myself in work, and then I spent the rest of the time tired. And it prevented me from having to really talk about anything that was going on, because as the man in the relationship, like, I didn't feel like I was supposed to experience any of those feelings. Like, I'm supposed to just have it.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you for this conversation. Thank you for your authenticity and creating the space. Hopefully some men will see that, and it will give them permission to really connect with themselves and connect with their feelings, connect and see. Because really, from my point of view, I think it's masculine intimacy is just something so beautiful that actually I think women so desire emotionally connected men, like, come and talk to me, come and, like, we want to help, right? Generally speaking, as women, we're the carers, right? It's like evolution, right? So we want to come, we want to help, we want to support, we want to connect. That tends to be the wall. So it's beautiful what you are sourcing, because we are source, right? That creating intimacy, being vulnerable, being authentic, and by that really gives invitation to others to step into these waters.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that, like, especially with men, vulnerability is our superpower, especially with each other, right? Because that is the step to the vulnerability leads to the authenticity. And the authenticity leads to the intimacy, which leads to the connection, which is what everybody wants.
Yeah.
That's where the magic happens, right?
Yeah.
When we're connected.
This is so good. So, Wes, tell me about, now we're going to shift a little bit. Your backpacking guide. What does that look like? If someone was to like, okay, this is resonating with me, I think I'm ready to explore these waters. What does that look like?
Yeah. So, do you want to know?
Who is it for?
Yeah.
Who is
what
it for?
the retreats that I lead, what those are like?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, they're for everyone. I believe that it's for everybody, and I try to design them in a way that they are accessible to everybody. I have taken people that claim that they're too out of shape. I took my 63-year-old mom. I've taken people that have never really gotten out of the city. It's I could do all sorts of things when it comes to planning a trip, but the goal of these retreats is to get anybody outside that hasn't experienced something like this before, or even if they have, because it's not just about keep going backpacking and learning how to backpack, and it's about getting out there and getting to experience that container, as I was talking about, of being in Mother Nature and getting to create that intimacy with yourself. Because when you're out there, there is nothing else. There's nothing to distract you. We can't be glued to our phones in the backcountry. You don't have your job, the internet, anything. There's no distractions. And the wilderness is just such the thing that solitude lends is just a space for you to be with yourself uninterrupted. And that's where you really get to figure out what's going on with you, who you really are, what you really want in your life. There's nowhere to hide from the intimacy at that point.
So true.
And you add like, putting some miles in, and that getting some exercise and experiencing some endurance definitely will show you who you are in ways that you didn't know, especially if it's nothing like you've done before. You get to learn things about your body, and what you're capable of. It's like challenging yourself in a way that you never have before. So really the goals of these retreats is to get people outside, away from their phones, away from their jobs, get them out where they can just be with themselves and really get grounded and connect with what's going on inside them and with the world around us. These pristine places that we haven't yet done a lot of damage to, if you will. And the beauty about what I do is that because I want it to be approachable for everyone, I supply everything. So really all you have to bring is your clothes and some toiletries, personal items, and I provide a list of recommendations for that stuff and some required things. But all of the backpacking equipment I have and for clients to use, and I handle the food, and really, really trying to dial into that weight part factor, right? And not have anybody experience that 55-pound pack. Like, I want to cut that in half.
We don't want that. We don't want that.
And I'm taking out all of the logistics, right? So that all you have to do is show up and walk and you don't have to think about it all. You can just think about like the sounds that you hear, the smells that you smell, what you're feeling, your feet touching the ground, the crunch of the trail underneath your toes. And um, I have some journaling exercises that we do and meditations. Um, it's really just about slowing down. Like we're talking about how we would like how I would bury myself in work and just go all the time, and you don't create that space to ever connect with yourself, anyone else for that matter. When there's a little bit of movement, right? Because you get to move between spots, but it's so much just being in pristine nature.
I want to go. I'm going to draw. I want to go. That sounds amazing. So if our listeners resonate with you and I'm interested, what is the best way to connect with you?
Yeah. My website is firstascentbackpacking.com, and you can email me also at info at firstascentbackpacking.com, or you can find me on Instagram and Facebook. I have pages on both of those, so email is super convenient. So is Instagram.
Awesome. We can drop the links in the comments just for easy access. That's also possible. And okay, well, I feel like let's wrap it up here. Is there anything we haven't talked about? Any last message that you want to share?
I think the only thing that I would share is, in my experience, if you are feeling any kind of unsure or lost or just disconnected, just take some time outside, even if it's close. It doesn't have to be a backpacking trip. I just had this same experience last week where I haven't really been I live so close to so many trails, and I haven't been getting out there, and I've been keeping myself busy, right? And so it was just so good to go out the other morning and not worry about what time it was, yes, I'm aware of my commitments later in the day, but to just go out there and just be out there, it's very healing.
Yeah.
So I would just, spend as much time outside as you can.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Let's go to my place too when whatever I feel, wherever I am, I know I can go. We live in a valley, so we've got forest and nature is just 10 minutes from here. And it's beautiful. And I know anytime I go, and it's just like you say, the body just leads you. The body just goes. And it was on Sunday on Saturday. Yeah, I was just processing things. And I was like, okay, I'm just gonna go half an hour, and suddenly I came 3.5 hours later, exhausted and angry because I wasn't prepared for that. But I just walked, and it was just beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So people, get out of the house and go and walk, go spend some time in nature, get out of the phones, and find yourself. So thank you so much, Wes, for this conversation.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Martina. My pleasure.
Thank you. So we will tune in soon.